This week on Constitution Avenue, thinking forward to a future with the pandemic behind us.
I want everything to get back to normal.
Looking ahead to life after the coronavirus. Experts studying the lessons learned.
Our work is focused very much on prevention.
But warning to prepare for the next big one.
I mean, are you prepared to absorb the deaths of another 500,000 people?
A time in America where we're changing how we live.
People are spending more time in their homes, and it's motivated a lot of people to seek out a new place to live.
Changing the realities of how our kids learn.
Social distancing is not happening. It can't.
And preparing for the road ahead as we take you down Constitution Avenue.
We the people
of the United States.
in order to form a
more perfect
Union.
And establish this
Constitution
for the United States of America.
Hi everyone, I'm Blair Miller. Right now, we're at a turning point in the fight against COVID-19 as the country looks to define a new normal in the post-pandemic world to come. We're here along Constitution Avenue, here in Washington, D.C., where big decisions are made every single day, and we're here to dig deeper on those decisions. The stories you're about to see explain how what happens here impacts you in real ways, not just here in D.C., but where you live. Right now, the race to vaccinate is still very much in full swing, and that's where we begin this week's Constitution Avenue with a look at where we stand and the progress being made. It's this week's Article 1.
Unknown pathogen, unprecedented outbreak.
We cannot be gathered together.
The NBA has suspended games until further notice.
I have today declared that the coronavirus presents a public health emergency in the United States.
What seemed like the start of a horror movie became our reality more than a year ago, a global pandemic. Now, more than a year later, hope for a return to normalcy.
We have to keep hammering that vaccinations is our pathway out.
At least half of the country with at least one shot, and the president encouraging more.
To put it simply, if you've been waiting for your turn, wait no longer.
But it's happening as COVID-19 variants spread and new variants keep popping up.
And the variants make it particularly concerning.
The Biden administration launched 4 TV ads in a campaign costing $10 million to encourage people to get vaccinated against the coronavirus. One of the ads is aimed at Black Americans who've raised concerns of the vaccine being distributed equally.
Our history is we're somewhat leery of the healthcare apparatus in this nation, but we have to get this vaccine.
The reality is we're nearing 600,000 deaths in the U.S. from the coronavirus. As that number grows, health officials fear what's ahead. We found out what's being done right now to combat the pandemic and prepare for the next one.
This had been something that had been bothering me for years.
Dr. Louis Profeta is an ER doctor in Indianapolis, one of those who sounded the alarm that we weren't prepared. He and others are now doing it again, warning this pandemic may not be the big one.
We cannot have healthcare centers climbing over themselves and hoarding masks or people stealing them from them. So we have to have the infrastructure in place. That's just masks.
Taking a critical look at how equipped our healthcare industry is may be just one part of it. Another may be found here amongst the high-pitched chirps from these bats near the campus of Montana State University. Researchers believe bats were linked to the outbreak of COVID-19. Epidemiologist Raina Plowright and her team collect the bats in nets and take samples.
We look at their immune status, we look at their nutritional status, we look at many parameters that tell us what their health is. And that allows us to know what are the factors driving the infectious cycles within the bats. Our work is focused very much on prevention, but to prevent spillover of pathogens from bats to humans, we have to understand how they circulate in bats.
Back in Washington, former U.S. Senator Joe Lieberman and Tom Ridge, the first U.S. Secretary of Homeland Security, lead the Commission on Biodefense. They're pushing for a program that would create stockpiles of vaccines and tests when an infectious disease pops up in human clusters.
Some people will be infected by it, but it won't be a pandemic and it won't be as painful as this year has been for America.
And you've got to not walk away
from this field once this pandemic ends.
That program has been presented to President Biden, but at a cost of $10 billion a year. Right now, we all feel it, pandemic fatigue, wondering how long the social distancing, the masking, and sanitizing will last before we can get back to the simple things we miss. Our Molly Koick found out when we can see changes that last.
My question, simple. What will life be like after the COVID vaccine?
How are we doing today?
The answer, well,
I don't want everything to get back to normal.
that's more complex.
We would all just like to go get vaccinated now and ditch the masks, but that's not happening.
Dr. Dawn Woolley, a virologist and Wright State University professor, has been studying viruses her entire career.
It's going to take months before even a substantial number of people are vaccinated.
Something people heading to the Dayton Convention Center vaccine clinic understand.
So we can get herd immunity.
So here's another question for Dr. Woolley. What will that take?
Given the transmissibility of the new coronavirus, it's looking like we might need closer to 90% of people protected to achieve that herd immunity.
Though not everyone is comfortable with the idea of the vaccines.
Some people may not want the vaccine for various reasons.
People I spoke with are looking forward to a time when they can step out of their fenced-in, stay-at-home lives.
Okay.
I didn't even have to finish my question before Regina Mercer told me what she wants to do.
Traveling.
It'll be nice when we're able to travel again.
The good thing is that we know that there's considerable amount of pent-up demand in the marketplace.
Brian Hoyt with TripAdvisor said a company survey found 65% of travelers are already planning for their trip as soon as they can get there safely. And travel-related internet searches are taking off.
We expect that that's probably going to be a domestic recovery first, and that will evolve into international travel as we get towards the back end of the year.
But as people long to spread their wings, the virus is still spreading.
Still got to wear a mask. You still got to be safe. You know, limit your family and friends.
Well, I expect that we will still be doing some of these social distancing, mask wearing into the fall.
But Dr. Woolley said we should make progress before then. In the spring and summer, she says warmer, more humid conditions should lower case numbers and allow more people to get vaccinated, which Woolley says will help get people back to work and school. However, COVID safety protocols like masks will likely not be gone for good, including holiday family gatherings.
We know that those have been events where the virus has been documented to spread. I'm hoping that after this next season, we will be really back to normal as to what we consider normal.
The most recent Kaiser Family Foundation survey found 13% of Americans still say they will not get the vaccine at all, while 17% are still taking the wait and see approach. Some of our Facebook viewers told me they're worried companies develop the vaccines too quickly. There was not enough testing, and they're unsure about the long-term side effects and risks. In Dayton, Ohio, I'm Molly Koick for Constitution Avenue.
From here in Washington to your town, many businesses are trying to figure out their future and if employees will continue to work from home. Real estate experts say that's led to more people to look for more space. That prompted our Elizabeth Hopkins to ask if now's the time to buy or sell.
Another single-family home sold, and another, and another. Daryl Fairweather, chief economist at Redfin, says buyers are acting fast.
The housing market is really strange right now. Nearly 2/3 of home buyers reported making an offer on a home sight unseen in the last year.
That's pushing prices up, despite some very uncertain economic conditions.
Really how this pandemic has impacted our relationship to homes. So people are spending more time in their homes, and it's motivated a lot of people to seek out a new place to live because they want more space or they want to live in a different area.
These new trends are raising concerns that the market is overheated and that a real estate bubble might be ready to pop. Fairweather isn't worried yet.
I do think that once the pandemic, starts to end and things get back to normal, that some of that home price appreciation should start to slow down. If it doesn't slow down, then I might be a bit concerned.
I do think that there are some of these warning signs. Again, also incomes, wages not growing at the same pace as housing prices. Housing prices are growing faster.
UMass Boston economist Karen Horn specializes in housing issues. She also sees the current price spike being tied to the changing way that people live today, as well as a chronic shortage of new housing being built.
I think one of the critical warning signs that people would look for is it driven by speculation? Like, is the demand for housing driven by an unsustainable force, people flipping houses?
Both economists think the price increases will start to cool down this spring.
I think that supply will probably, go back to where it was.
As we start to come out of this pandemic, as more people are vaccinated, we'll start to see an increase in new listings.
Ahead on Constitution Avenue, schools are reopening, but is it safe to go back?
Well, we have cases. We have cases in our schools.
It's been a constant underlying worry.
Ahead, my conversation with a group of teachers on the front lines. And later,
my name is Matthew Robinson. I'm the patient care coordinator.
For months, healthcare workers have documented their new reality in the halls of hospitals.
We've had really, really bad weeks, months.
When Constitution Avenue continues. Join the conversation online with Constitution Avenue. You'll find us on our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram pages. Just look for Constitution Avenue. Constitution Avenue takes you right in front of the White House, where President Joe Biden just finished his first 100 days in office. Part of the president's promise was to reopen schools by now, but we want to know what it's like on the inside of these classrooms. In this week's Real Talk, a group of teachers share their journey back to in-person learning. Well, thank you all so much for your time. I know you all have been very busy in the classrooms here recently. So give me a sense, what is the feeling right now in your schools?
I am still hybrid, which means I have students on my computer and students in the class. I'm still that way for 5 out of 6 classes.
For me, I have students who have not been in a school building in over a year and a half. Some of them I have never met other than as an electronic square on a computer.
What is still the most difficult part?
For me, it's not making relationships. The kids in the classroom, I'm getting to know, but kids came in to pick up books and I didn't recognize them. I don't know their names, and that's just heartbreaking.
It's very hard to give kids any one-on-one attention, especially if they're only on the computer. I can't have any private conversation. I can't have a moment of encouragement or redirection, a private, come on, you can do this.
How much do you worry about the long-term impact of that?
I think they're bonding. The ones in the face-to-face are trying to bond more than they normally would. But the mental health is extraordinarily important. But we also have had since August classrooms of 30 face-to-face kids. So that means they're elbow to elbow. And that's frightening.
Social distancing is not happening. It can't with the numbers we have. I have nearly 30 in at least 2 of my classes.
You 3, are you all vaccinated?
I am.
Right before I attended this meeting, I got vaccination number 2.
I'm in between shots.
I was going to say, how much do you worry about, maybe fellow teachers who aren't vaccinated, or the kids, obviously, who aren't vaccinated right now?
Well, we have cases. We have cases in our schools, so.
It's been a constant underlying worry. I think it's died down just because you get used to things. You get a little numb to it.
We are in masks the entire time that we're in school, except when students are eating.
What is your advice to parents who may still be on the fence or very uncomfortable with having their kids going back to the classroom?
If you don't feel comfortable sending your child, at least maybe talk to your child about turning on their camera, maybe participating more. You kind of get out of a class what you put into it.
I would encourage families to continue to really stress the importance of their education and school in whatever way they feel most safe about it. But to try to resist the COVID fatigue and realize that there will come a time where we will all be able to be back together. But until that time, don't give up.
Well, my hat's off to you 3, but also all the educators across the country, because I know it's been a journey for you all. And many of us parents are very thankful for the work you've put into it. So thank you so much for your time here today. And thanks for everything that you do. Ahead on Constitution Avenue.
Just got my second dose of the COVID vaccine.
On the front lines of the pandemic,
People are getting tired of hearing about it. It's like we're still going through it.
healthcare workers are taking us along to experience the pandemic through their eyes. And up next, the sound of giving back to those helping so many of us.
I wanted them to feel appreciated. I appreciate them. Everybody else appreciates them.
Here in Washington, lawmakers and health officials are spending a lot of time talking about the variants of the coronavirus. And in neighborhoods all across the country, many of you are asking, how concerned should I be? And are these variants more contagious? Our Samantha Manning looked into those questions. It's this week's Deep Dive.
Health officials say they're concerned about variants of COVID-19 popping up around the globe. Some seem to spread easier and quicker, and in the end could end up causing more infections. Here's what experts know right now. These COVID-19 variants are caused by the virus naturally changing or mutating over time, and that means more and more variants could develop. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention says some variants emerge and disappear, while others stick around longer. The good news is that scientists are actively studying how vaccines and treatments respond to the variants. So far, the CDC says vaccines that have come to the market recognize the mutations. They're also looking at booster shots to help protect against the new threats. But here's what the CDC says we still need to figure out: exactly how the new variants are impacting patients, with some variants causing worsening symptoms and some causing milder ones. In Washington, I'm Samantha Manning for Constitution Avenue.
We've seen the countless sacrifices from those who work in our healthcare community. Now, thousands of people from around the world are coming together to recognize those workers. As Chris Flanagan shows us, they hope a small gesture will have a big impact.
Call it a labor of love for Marie Mitchell.
You think about the people that are going to get it. So you want it to be as nice as it can be, and you want to do more. You want to make as many as you can. It's the fingers that give you the hardest time.
Mitchell is making dozens of small hand-shaped medals inside her basement studio in Natick.
You move the metal and not the sod.
They are thank you gifts for frontline healthcare workers who have worked courageously and tirelessly through the COVID pandemic.
So it'll be put on like so.
It's part of a worldwide movement called the Hand Metal Project.
For us to take a piece of metal and cut a hand out of it and be able to give it to somebody as a symbol of their hard work was really a nice gesture. It feels good to be a part of all this.
Many of the medals which Mitchell made are honoring phlebotomists, those who draw blood, at Morton Hospital in Taunton. Chrissy De Silva delivered them to her former co-workers. She says it was her way to thank them for their service and sacrifice.
Sometimes the little people in the hospital don't feel appreciated, and I wanted them to feel appreciated. But I appreciate them, everybody else appreciates them.
Each tiny medal is made out of metal, which symbolizes strength.
And there are probably more. I mean, there's lots of workers, but these people were on the front line. And imagine sitting with someone who has no family and, you know, they're taking their last breath and you're there holding their hand. So, you know, that takes a special kind of person to be able to do that.
A special medal for some very special people.
More than 3,000 artisans from 66 countries from around the world are participating in the Hand Metal Project. In Dedham, Massachusetts, I'm Chris Flanagan for Constitution Avenue.
When we come back, fighting the pandemic in a way that's rarely seen.
Our numbers here at the hospital are still really high.
The new reality for healthcare workers, risking it all to keep others safe. Next on Constitution Avenue. The COVID-19 pandemic scarred many of our communities in ways that no one could have imagined. Those scars cut even deeper for healthcare workers who've seen the worst of this virus since day one. Our Kirsten Garris in Memphis shows us how doctors and nurses are still pushing forward 1 year into this fight.
For more than 365 days, this has been Matt Robinson's reality.
This week right now is kind of ending on a sour note because across the nation there's 280,000 confirmed cases today, with a death toll that's reached almost 4,000 in one day.
Spending countless hours on the COVID-19 floor at Methodist University Hospital.
We've had to split between 2 different units right now, and just because our numbers here at the hospital are still really high and we don't have enough space on one 48-bed unit, so we split it up between 2 different areas.
We first met Robinson last December when I visited the COVID-19 unit. At the time, the Thanksgiving holiday surge was pounding Shelby County, pushing hospitals to their limits, leaving healthcare workers exhausted and afraid of what could happen in the new year.
Every day coming into work, it was kind of coming around Christmas time, and after Christmas, is today going to be the day that we get hit with this high number of people? And you were afraid coming in that like today's going to be hard. And luckily for us, that day never came in December and January. So it was kind of a relief.
A welcome relief paired with a sign of hope.
Just got my second dose of the COVID vaccine about 24 hours out, feeling a little tired, had a little slight fever this morning, but besides that, it's hopeful. That's what I'm feeling right now is.
But that's not the only bit of light casting out the darkness of this deadly virus.
It kind of gives us a little bit of brightness in our day. So we have cards, hundreds of cards were sent to us. And kind of being here on the front lines, these are the things right here that kind of keep us going.
A little reminder to push forward.
Even though this virus has been a year in and people are getting tired of hearing about it, it's like we're still going through it. So to get that recognition of we're still here to support you, like thank you for what you're doing, really means a lot to us.
But the pandemic is leaving behind hidden scars. Robinson tells me he's experienced new levels of social anxiety sparked by more relaxed COVID restrictions across the Mid-South.
All I see is here's another surge, here's the next big wave. There's gonna be hidden scars from holding family members' hands when they pass, not feeling comfortable around any group of people, even a larger group of people. Like, when is that going to become normal?
Since my conversation with Nurse Robinson, more than 25% of the country has become fully vaccinated. In Memphis, I'm Kirsten Garris for Constitution Avenue.
Everywhere we turn, we see stories of people who've overcome so much in the past year. We've felt great loss, but in an unprecedented year, there's also a sense of hope. It's that hope that's getting some people through every single day. Hope for a job, hope for their health, or hope that one day the pandemic that's caused so much pain will be a thing of the past. I'm Blair Miller. Thanks for joining us here on Constitution Avenue.
We the people
of the United States,
in order to form a more perfect union.
And
establish
this
Constitution
Constitution
for the United States of America.